today, Sabrina Silverstein. Sabrina is a national board certified teacher and an independent educational consultant who leads her own firm, SWS Consulting. So she has over 30 years of experience in early childhood education and brings a wealth of knowledge to the table because she has spent 16 years as a pre-K teacher in the Chicago public schools. And other career highlights include developing and training educators on early childhood teacher evaluation rubric in Washington, D.C., building bilingual play-based learning programs as a director of early childhood in the Bronx in New York City, and as the executive director of teaching and learning for the Division of Early Childhood at the New York City Department of Education, she spearheaded the development of citywide professional learning initiatives, so a dynamic coaching model and comprehensive curriculum and assessment systems. So today she continues her work as an educator, coach, curriculum writer, and strategic advisor to numerous organizations, including ours. She's fluent in Spanish, has a passion for travel, and we're delighted to have her give a talk today about developing learning activities for children, tasks that engage. Thank you.
Wow. Thanks, Veronica. I kind of feel like I'm done now. I can't follow up on that. Thank you so much. It is my honor to be here today and a pleasure to be able to speak with all of you today. Veronica gave a pretty good background of who I am. I consider myself a teacher. That's how I always introduce myself. So I am thrilled to be here with all of you. As a teacher, I am used to presenting in interactive manners and being super engaging with my presentations and doing, questions, answers, playing off an audience. So the webinar format is a little bit challenging for me. You will probably see me use my hands all sorts of times, but please bear with me, and I'm really looking forward to our discussion later. So let's dive in. We're going to talk today about developing learning activities for children. Tasks that engage. All right. These are our objectives really for the short time that we're together. Today, we'll talk about how young children learn. We'll talk about creating engaging activities for young children. And we're also going to talk about how to scaffold those activities for young children, how to incorporate various languages and cultures. And my favorite part is going to be when we get to all talk together and you get to share ideas and we talk together and we ask each other questions and answer questions for each other. So hopefully we will fit all of this in. And I don't know about you, but I get tired of hearing my own voice. So hopefully we'll have a nice long time at the end to have a discussion. But let's dive in. So here on this slide, you see skills that I often hear that adults want to learn. Pickleball seems to be the hot new sport out there for many people I know. That's a skill, right? Playing pickleball. So how do you learn how to play pickleball? What's the evidence that you have learned it? So if you want to learn the skill of playing pickleball, well, the evidence is going to be that you can play in a pickleball game, right? Pretty straightforward. How do you get there? Well, you're probably going to play pickleball. You're going to take lessons. You might read a book. You might watch some videos. You're going to repeat over and over and over again, right? You're going to practice. So pretty straightforward skill. You want to learn, play pickleball. You want to be able to play in a game. You're going to have to practice playing pickleball. Same thing for these other skills. Creating an Excel sheet. I'm sure most of you do this all the time. What's the evidence going to be? Well, the evidence is going to be that you actually created an Excel sheet. And what's the learning? You're going to either take a class, you're going to watch a video, you're going to read about it, you're going to practice it. Same kind of things. Same with knitting. I don't know about where everyone is in the world, but here in the northeast of America right now, it's starting to get chilly. So people are taking up knitting, and that skill is, they want to learn how to knit. Well, how are you going to know if you can knit? You're going to knit a scarf for your loved one for the holidays. These are super straightforward activities with adults. Adults who are usually motivated on their own to learn these activities, they're focused, they can focus easily because this is a skill they need to learn. They've decided that they want to learn it, and they're going to be engaged because it's their choice. Children, that's a little bit of a different story, right? Children don't always have a choice in what they learn. For example, children do have to learn letters, sounds. They've got to learn how to count. Not everyone wants to do that when the teacher or when a researcher wants them to do that. So it's a little bit more challenging with children. Let's start with a basic question. Have you ever known what you want children to learn? You know the goal, but struggled with an activity that helps them learn it and shows evidence of their learning? I mean, I find myself in that position often in the classroom. I know what I have to teach them, but I'm not sure how to do it, and I don't know how to prove that I've taught it and that they've learned it. Here, what you see are some skills from Head Start standards. So because we might have some folks, I believe, that who are international, just a quick aside, Head Start is a free, federally funded program for children ages birth to age 5, and its goal is to help children get ready for school. It's a wraparound program because it includes school, it includes health services, it includes family supports. Head Start programs have they've created standards called Early Learning Outcome Standards. These standards that you see on the screen are from these Early Learning Outcome Standards. The standards that you see here are all for preschoolers. That's what that P means. You'll see goal P. They also have infant, toddler standards. And these are actual skills that children need to learn and are supposed to learn in programs across the United States. Different states in the United States have different standards. So for example, New York has its own set of New York pre-K standards. Connecticut, which is where I am right now, has its own set as well. There's also something called the National Association for the Education of Young Children, also known as NAEYC. They have guidelines as well. I personally like these Head Start outcomes because they go across all of the United States and they're pretty clear. The framework is interactive and easy to use. In the reference section, you will see where you can get all this on the website. And so when you're looking at these skills, you can say like, well, here are the skills that they need to learn. And the question marks are because what are the evidence? So we're going to go into the math skills a bunch as we keep talking. Look at that literacy. Child asks and answers questions about a book that was read aloud. Child manages actions, words, behaviors. That's approaches to learning. How do we know that they're going to do that? I mean, that's really tricky. How do we know what they're going to do? If we take that first one, the math, child associates the quantity with the written numerals up to 5 and begins to write numbers. Okay, you can sit the child down and say, write numbers 1 to 5 and then draw 5 circles. You can do that. That's easy, right? Easy, clear. Does that sound fun? Are children going to want to do this? Are they going to be engaged with it? And will this really be representative of a true understanding? Or is it just, oh, I know I have to do this for the teacher and this is what it means, but I really have no idea what I'm doing? How do we know that they actually have gotten a true understanding? So we're going to, before we dive into these standards and the examples, we're going to actually walk through a whole set of an example. How do children learn? You all know this, right? You all know different ways that children learn. Here are a few well-documented ways in which children learn. This is by no means an exclusive list. This is what I, as a teacher, and most teachers always think about as they're planning activities in their classrooms. As you know, children learn through play. Piaget said it best, play is the work of children. We learn all the time as we're doing work. Children, they're learning as they're playing, when they're interacting with each other, when they're using their imaginations, when they're able to manipulate objects, they are learning. Music, rhymes, there's so much brain research on how you can use music and rhymes to help teach and help people remember. I don't know if any of you, but I for certain use a lot of, mnemonic devices, made little tunes up to learn the water cycle or to teach, this. So there are lots of ways that music and rhymes, and it also, the brain connections are really important in those, and those are ways in which children learn. Small groups, children can learn in any fashion. Often small groups are really helpful to teach children something, especially for scaffolding, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Creative expression. So they learn by using their creative expression. One child might be able to learn and express themselves through drawing a piece of work. One child might be able to dance their way out. One child might be able to do some theatrical experiences to learn and to show that they're learning. So thinking about children's individual creativeness is really important. Role plays, when children are in the dramatic play area and they're setting the table and they're serving food, this happens all the time. The way they set down that plate and that fork and that cup and then another plate and a fork and a cup, think about that one-to-one correspondence they're learning right there in math. And they don't even know they're learning it, and the teacher doesn't necessarily know they're teaching it, but children are learning. In order to learn, repetition is so important. For adults, it's often said you have to do something multiple times to be able to actually know it and learn it. Same is true for children. And then fun. If something is fun, you are sure going to remember it and you're going to enjoy it and you're going to be learning without even knowing you are learning. Again, not an exhaustive list, just some different ways children learn. How can we do this? How can we create an engaging activity for a young child? There are many ways. There is not one way. That's the great thing. And some children are going to be more engaged than others in different activities. Here are a couple tips we can think about. So one that's really important is identify your goal. What's your goal? Do you want to be able to play pickleball? Know where you want to get. Know where you're headed. Know your audience, right? Who are you teaching to? Who are these children? What do they like? What are their interests? I remember that once I was teaching in kindergarten, but I was working with a group of 8th grade boys after school, and because their teacher got fed up with them and was like, they can't do math. These kids can't do it. I'm done. So I said, let me have them for a while, a couple days after school. And I happened to know that these boys were really obsessed with baseball because I was coaching them baseball. So I knew that. I took the baseball statistics. We took the runs batted in. We took the speed of pitches. We took all these things. We made it into math. And they went back to their teacher, and their teacher was like, how'd you even do that? And I said, you got to find what they're interested in. They didn't know they were doing math. They were just talking about baseball. So know your audience and what can they do now? Where are they? Know where they are, and then where you want them to get to. Allow choice. Different methods for different children, just like us, just like adults. Everybody is unique. All of our children are unique. So there are different ways that different children will learn. Make sure to use, the activity is developmentally appropriate. What does that mean? That means, make sure that children, it's an activity that children can easily access. How do I know if it's developmentally appropriate? Well, that's really hard. Teachers, we're going to look at the standards, right? What should children at this average age be able to do? That's going to help guide us. This is where our standards come in. This is where the national, NACE, the National Association for the Education of Young Children, comes in. Know our standards. Researchers, talk to teachers. They're the ones who are with their children all the time. If you're walking into a classroom, ask the teachers. They're going to know what to help you decide what's developmentally appropriate. And then, the last tip is be open and willing to change. Okay, I just taught all my kids how to count to 10. For some reason, I got my kids now rolling on the floor and counting 1, 5, 8, 9. Something didn't work, right? So go back, check it out, and then think about it and adjust. None of us are perfect. We are constantly adjusting, especially as teachers. That's what we do. We constantly adjust to meet our goals. So let's talk this through with an example. Let's talk exactly what we just did, the same exact slide, but let's talk it through using this math skill that children have to learn. So that, again, child associates a quantity with written numerals up to 5 and begins to write numbers. Okay, I got my goal. My goal is that the children are going to write numerals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're going to connect the right amount, the correct amount of objects with that numeral. That's my goal. All right, know my audience. I've got 4-year-olds. These children are 4. It's a pretty small group, and I know they can all count to 5. And I know that they all have enough fine motor skills to be able to hold a crayon or a pencil. I've seen them scribble. I've seen them write lines. And I know this group, they love to sing and dance. So that's what I mean about know your audience, right? So they love to do this. Okay. Choice. How am I going to get fit choice in here? Let's see. Let's sing a song. I know my children, I remember I said they love to sing and dance. So we're going to sing a song called 5 Little Monkeys Jumping on the Bed. For those of you who might not live in America, this might sound pretty funny. It's a super popular song here for young children, and it's pretty silly. So we're going to sing that song. I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to use different ways of learning, and I'm going to bring in puppets. So I'm going to have 5 monkey puppets. So every child can have, the 5 children can have a monkey puppet. I'm going to put a big number 5 on the board, and I'm going to make it out of sandpaper so that children can feel it. I'm going to bring in that touch, right? That ability to touch something. We're going to sing the song. We're going to sing it more than once. We're going to repeat it. It's really fun. 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. Right? I'm going to use his. I'm going to use her. I'm going to use their. We're going to repeat that song. We're going to have 5 children stand up and be the monkeys. We're going to have 3 children lie on the floor and make the number 5 with their bodies, right? So we're going to have them, one child lie this way, and then we're going to have a child lie this way, and then we're going to have the loop to make the number 5. I'm going to talk children how to make the 5 through the air. Take your finger and make a line across, then make the line down and a big curve, right? These are different ways. Do you see how I'm using different methods of learning, different ways of teaching? And then I'm going to have children make a 5. They're going to write a 5. They can do it in a bag that's full of shaving cream and write in a little plastic bag sealed, and then write the 5 in it so they can see the 5. They're going to go collect 5 objects around the room, whatever they want. You want to bring 5 chairs? Great. You want to bring 5 cars, 5 blocks? Bring them over. So all of these things are addressing that choice and that developmentally appropriate, right? This is appropriate for children because it's engaging, it's fun, it's using bodily kinesthetic, using musical intelligences, using their ability to touch, making sure it's tactile. We're addressing different needs. And then, I'm going to evaluate the activity and adjust it. Were any of them able to write that 5? We just, did that for 20 minutes. Did that work at all? You know what? It worked for 2 kids. I'm going to repeat it again tomorrow, and I'm going to adjust this little piece. I'm going to add something. I'm going to see that 2 children need help with this. I'm going to add that into it. And here are your 5 little monkeys that are just fun to look at. So 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. So I might use this, and I might do it digitally with children and have the monkeys fall off, bump their heads, and have the mama call in the doctor. Now, let's say a couple of the children just are not getting it. They're not getting it. What do we do with this activity? How do we scaffold in an activity? What does it mean to scaffold for a young child? Scaffold is, and you all know this, right? It's really providing that temporary support for children as they learn new skills. So helping them reach that next level. And how are we going to, and this all comes from Vygotsky, right? In the zone of proximal development, that's in my resources later. There's an article on that. So how do we do this? What are some good scaffolds? What do we use? Well, how about visual aids? if you ask a child, say, you need to build a bridge, I'll be back in 20 minutes. Well, if the child doesn't know what, put some pictures of bridges out there. Help them out. Open some books with pictures of bridges in them, the Three Billy Goats Gruff and the bridge, right? Give them, that's a scaffold for them. You're providing them some support. What about vocabulary? Pre-teach it. If you're doing a lesson on alligators, then make sure you pre-teach that word alligators, and so children know what the lesson is about. You don't have to stop, and they don't have to miss part of that lesson. Using their prior knowledge. What information do our children know? If we just did a lesson on triangles, and I know that all my children know that triangles have 3 sides, great. Hey, now we're going to see how many sides does a square have? How many sides does a hexagon have? They know how to do this because they just did the triangle. They know how to count that. So use their prior knowledge. Physical support. If you're seeing if a child can cross a balance beam, right? These are skills that children need to be able to do. If they can't do it, how will you scaffold? Hold them by the hand, and walk with them. And then as they get it, as their balance gets a little better, hold them by one finger. Then you might just want to touch a finger. Then you might just want to walk beside them. Same thing with learning how to ride a tricycle, right? That's how you're going to help them. Ask prompts, give them prompts. Tell me more about that. Ask them to tell you more and encourage them to tell you more. So if they, say, well, 2 plus 2 is 5. Tell me more about that. How did you get there? Get to the piece of the misunderstanding so that you can help them understand it. Think out loud. This is one of my favorites, and children love it. You're teaching a lesson on patterns. Oh, I see you put red, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow. I wonder what comes next. And then when you say it again, red, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, invariably children will go red. And they won't get it yet. They won't quite get the pattern yet, but they'll be able to do that. And that's that scaffold for them to be able to make a pattern all on their own. Peer support. Even at 2.5 years old, probably even younger, children can support each other. They help each other. If one child is really skilled at working in the sand table, you might have another child go with them, and they might work together. Have them help each other. And as a teacher or a researcher or whoever you are with these children, offer feedback. You're trying to distinguish the difference between D's, P's. I see you drew a circle and a line. Let's look at that. Let's look at the D. What side is the circle on the D? What side is it on for you? Right? Help them see that. Scaffolding is just that temporary support to help them understand and get to the next piece of learning. So let's go through this and use that same math example, that same 5 little monkeys example. And let's see how we would scaffold. We already talked about a couple of these things. Visual aids, we're providing puppets, right? The children are going to have the puppets. They're going to have the number 5. These are all visual aids. Pre-teaching vocabulary. Look, 5 monkeys jumping on a bed is pretty silly, right? I better make sure my children know what monkey is, and I better make sure they know what jump means. So I'm going to pre-teach that vocabulary. Prior knowledge. I know they know counting songs. We've done other songs. We've sang a lot of songs in class, so I know that they're going to be able to pick up this tune. So this isn't the first song I've ever done with them. I've pre-taught other songs before. I'm using their prior knowledge. How do we give physical support? Well, it's pretty hard sometimes for children to lie in a straight line, so you might straighten out their legs for them, so they're in a straight line. The curved line, you're going to help them bend their knees so it actually looks like a 5 on the ground. Asking prompting questions. So if there are only 4 monkeys and we take one away, remove one of the puppets, how many would, right? You're prompting them to think about it, to think what happens. Do a think aloud, oh, I have 3 puppets here, but one hits their head, bumps their head, falls down, and that goes over here. How many do we have left here? Again, that's helping them. That's thinking out loud. That's talking about what you're doing. Pair up. One child is really good at writing the number 5. Have another child join him. They might do a hand over hand method. It is amazing children, I never cease to be amazed that children, how they teach each other and how they are so skillful at helping each other. They do things that I might not have thought of, and they're so valuable. Use your children to help each other. Um, and feedback, say a child wrote a 5 and it's actually the curve part is backwards. Give them some feedback. I noticed that you drew 2 lines here and then this curved line goes like this. Let's look at the 5 that I drew. Oh, what's different here, right? It's just that little scaffolding, that little support you're giving them. And then the next time that they draw a 5, it might be the exact way that a 5 is supposed to look. So this is sharing languages. What about if we have children who speak different languages in our classes? I mean, most of us do now, right? How do we support them? How do we scaffold for them? How do we ensure that these children are engaged in our tasks and that they're actually understanding? So here are some tips. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, and there are many different techniques. So you want to pre-teach vocabulary, right? Again, making sure they know what monkey is, what jump is. Some cultures might be offended by thinking about monkeys who might be dirty animals jumping on a bed, right? That might be offensive. So talking about it, explaining, pre-teaching, it's a silly song. It's not real. We're actually not going to have real monkeys in our house. And some cultures might say, oh, sure, we have monkeys come into our house. We have a monkey who's a pet. So it's just knowing, being open to all cultures, being open to all languages, just encourage that. Using those visuals, making sure that, right, we're using those puppets or we're using the visuals that I showed you on the screen. Encourage those primary languages. Spanish is the only other language that I know, but if I have children in my classroom who speak Spanish, I use monos, monkeys, whatever. In other languages, I would learn the word for that. Google Translate has come a long way since it first started and is a powerful tool. Ask the families, hey, we're going to be doing a song about monkeys. Can you tell me how to say that in your home language? Encourage this. Have, again, peer mentoring. Peers are the best way. Children help each other and they like to help each other. Make sure those activities are interactive, because even if I'm not getting everything, if I'm able to participate, I'm up, I've got a puppet, I'm lying on the floor making numeral 5 with my friends, I am learning, I'm interacting with, and I'm learning. And embracing all languages and cultures. I mean, I don't need to tell that to this group, I don't think. But that's right, being really open, embrace it all languages, all cultures. I'm not going to go through that just because I am looking at time, and I think we kind of just did with the monkeys, so I'm kind of doing these 2 slides together. Let's move on to, what did they learn? What did our children learn from all that? And I'm going to combine these 2 slides too. Review your goals. What did you want them to learn? So I wanted our children to learn how to write the numerals 1 to 5 and how to bring the objects and make sure they could put the correct objects next to the correct items, right? This was just one way to start out by talking about 5 monkeys and the number 5. Then we get to 3 monkeys, and what does the numeral 3 look like? Look at the work. Okay, so we just did this really fun activity, and then maybe I'm going to ask them to each, like I said, they're each going to write that number 5. They're going to write a number 3. They're going to write a number 2, and they're going to go and get those objects. They might get more monkeys, have a whole supply of monkeys for them to use. And I'm going to be walking around, and I'm going to see, right? I'm going to have that checklist, and I'm going to be able to look at their work and see, take pictures. Oh, did they meet their goals? Oh, they did. Look. These children, oh my gosh, everyone can do it. This entire small group, they can do 2, they can do 4, they can do up to 5. Everyone got it. Awesome. What's my next step? I think for this group, my next step would be 6 through 10, right? Like keep going, as the standard says. But what if I'm looking around, I'm like, oh boy. So I got one child who can do all of these, and the rest, like they can do 1 and they can do 2. But 4, 3, 5, they get really confused and they start to just drop a bunch of monkeys, and they're not able to make that numeral, or they can write the 5, but they're just dropping a bucket of monkeys there, and that's what they have. What's my next step then? Okay, reevaluate. I need to do reteaching. I need to repeat. I need to do either go back to that activity and continue it again and scaffold a little more for those children, or I think of a new activity that's engaging and that's fun for them to do. Here are a couple examples of concrete ways that you might see children be able to do this. You might give them these and they might be able to match, right? Laminate these cards, put them in a center so they can do it over and over and over again. And then you get to know, you have your little checklist, you check, yep, this child can do all of these. This child can only do up to 3. How do I help them? Writing numerals, I can write the number 5. Look at these. Here we have a 5. That's a pretty solid 5. This one's backwards. This one looks a little more like the 2, right? So how do we scaffold for these 2 children who are struggling with it? And what do we do to help them? It's more practice, right? Again, go to those shaving cream in plastic bags. Go to use the sand table, right? The children love to write in sand. Have them use different ways. Have them use crayons or markers or colored pencils. Have them make their bodies into the shape. So again, you know where you need to reteach, where you need to scaffold, and where you need to support. Here are some resources. So the top one is the early Head Start outcomes that I talked about. This is where you can get them. It's a very cool site. It's interactive and it's really fun to use. You can get infants, toddlers, preschooler information on there. Here's a site for NACCE. That's the organization I talked about. And this is a specific resources for developmentally appropriate practice, which might be helpful. This is an article that just explains, the zone of proximal development and scaffolding and what it might look like for teachers in a classroom or for anybody else who needs to know. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening.